Ken seems to be cheating on me. We have lunch together, discussing my future. Because of the topic, a long silence follows. My phone rings, breaking the heavy atmosphere. It's a call from Ken. If he finds out I'm at his parents' house, he'll get angry and yell at me again. I nervously excused myself and answered the phone. Ken said something unexpected.
Dad collapsed. I'm going back home.
What? But Kyle is.
Shh.
Kyle, who had a somber look just moments ago, now has a mischievous smile and looks about 10 years younger. It seems he has a plan. My in-laws and I are fed up with Ken's tyrannical behavior. This is our chance to be free. I decided to follow Kyle's lead. My name is Nora Johnson, 45 years old. I met my husband, Ken Smith, when I was 23, and we got married. In the beginning, we were happy. But after we both turned 34, Ken started to change. He developed a bad habit of taking out his frustration on others when he was in a bad mood. It probably started when he got transferred to a new department and struggled with his work. He became visibly more irritated, often belittling me. Even his parents scolded him multiple times for his behavior, but each time Ken rebelled and became more stubborn. Eventually, his parents and I were exhausted by his attitude, and to avoid provoking him, we rarely argued back. I'd be lying if I said I never thought about divorce, but I lost my parents early on, so I have nowhere else to go. Besides, though my relationship with Ken is strained, I think of his parents as my own and could never abandon them.
What is this dinner? It's inedible.
Ken's harsh voice cut through. Tonight's dinner was meatloaf, salad, and soup, but he didn't like it.
The portions are small, and there's not enough variety. Stop slacking off with the housework.
He slammed the table, spilling some of the soup. Ken scowls at it and clicks his tongue.
Hey, what are you spacing out for? Clean it up quickly.
Yes. I wipe the table with a cloth as instructed and take it to the kitchen. Ken spits out more insults at my slumped back.
Go to the store and get some ready-made food. I can't eat this. It ruins my appetite. If you care about a man who works hard, go now.
Sure. If I don't answer, he'll yell again. So I quietly reply and leave the house in a hurry. Since it's late, most of the ready-made food is sold out, but I buy some ham cutlets and head back home. I find that the dinner has been completely eaten and empty plates are left on the table. Ken is watching TV with a sour expression, and when he sees me, he clicks his tongue again.
You're so late. I had to settle for that. I'll eat the ready-made food for breakfast.
I understand. He probably just wanted to annoy me. Or maybe he doesn't want to eat while looking at my face. I eat my now cold dinner while listening to the hollow sound of the TV. Since Ken doesn't help with any housework, I wash both my dishes and the ones he left on the table. Meanwhile, Ken just keeps watching TV. He doesn't say a word, as if to show he dislikes my presence. The bath is ready. Even though I call out, Ken, still upset about dinner, ignores me. Once he's in a bad mood, he ignores me for a while. But if I ignore him like he does to me, he gets terribly angry and curses at me. So I always try to act normally, even if I don't want to. I'll go in first. After I finish my bath, Ken is still watching TV. It's your turn to take a bath. He ignores me again. I'm used to it, so there's no point in dwelling on it. After waiting a while and seeing no movement, I give up and head to the bedroom first. The laundry and bathroom cleaning aren't done yet, but it can't be helped. I'll take care of the remaining chores tomorrow. With that thought, I fall asleep, feeling extremely tired.
Hey, you're spending too much money. How can it be decreasing this fast?
I'm trying to save as much as I can, but prices are high, and I get ready-made food for dinner every day.
Are you saying it's my fault?
Ken yells, and I flinch. His face is red with anger, and it's clear in his eyes.
Who do you think is providing for you? Know your place. Stop complaining and just do your housework quietly.
It seems we won't be having a conversation today either. I'm sorry.
Save money. It's my hard-earned money. Treat it more carefully. It's not your money.
Despite being so obsessed with money, Ken hates the idea of me going out to work. We don't have kids, and I think if I went to work, we wouldn't have to rely solely on his money, but he stubbornly refuses to allow it. When I ask him why his reasons change each time. Once he said, "You can't even handle housework properly. How can you do a job?" Another time he yelled, "Are you saying we can't live on my salary alone? Don't embarrass me."
You just want to waste money on yourself and have fun.
He's also yelled that at me, glaring fiercely. He just doesn't want me to have freedom where he can't see me. Especially after I turned 35, whenever I tried to go out with friends or buy something, he'd shout, "Whose money do you think you're spending?" He firmly believes that if I start working, I'll neglect the housework. I got tired of trying to persuade Ken, so now I just do what he says. When he's angry, I just keep saying yes and sorry, waiting for his anger to pass.
You're terrible at managing money. I earn enough. But because of you, we never get any financial relief.
Ken would rant like this, depositing his salary into his account and only giving me a fixed amount for household expenses. The rising cost of living that's all over the news isn't taken into account, and the household budget has been the same since we got married. Naturally, it's not enough. So when I say we don't have enough money, he accuses me of being bad at managing money or wasting it. Despite this, he always insists I buy ready-made food for dinner, so his actions and words don't match up. Once, I bought ready-made food in advance, and when I served it, he got incredibly angry, yelling, "Stop wasting money." After that, I realized he just wanted to harass me, so I avoid unnecessary actions. His reaction when I bought ready-made food in advance was so terrible. He's bad enough now, but back then he stayed angry for a week, ignored me, and took his frustration out on the house, leaving marks everywhere.
Hi, Nora. This is a souvenir from our trip. Please take it.
Nora, it's been a while. You look worn out.
The only relief in these stifling days is the weekly visits from my in-laws, Kyle and Beth. Welcome, Kyle, Beth. Thanks for the gift. I'm fine, don't worry. They're so kind. It's hard to believe they're Ken's parents. They always care about me. They've given up on Ken, but they still try to improve the situation, thinking of ways to help.
Ken, I heard from someone that you often say it's tough at work. Why don't you move back in with us? Even saving on rent would make a big difference, right?
Kyle and Beth live on pensions. They don't have much, but they don't need Ken's money. Indeed, saving on rent would make things easier.
Both Kyle and I can handle housework, so if we share the chores among the three of us, living together shouldn't be a problem. If Nora wants, she can work while we take care of the house. Then Ken wouldn't have to worry about money.
They seem to think Ken's frustration is because of money. Of course, they know that's not the only reason. They're trying to remove the most manageable stressor. They choose their words carefully to avoid provoking Ken. They worry a lot about Ken taking his anger out on me. It's such a generous offer that I almost nodded immediately. But Ken was different. He glared at his parents with resentment, his face turning red with anger. We realized we had failed again. Ken exploded, shouting and spitting as he berated us.
Don't mess with me. Don't talk like I'm not independent. Don't belittle me. Just because you're my parents, don't think you can say whatever you want. You're insulting my character.
Kyle opened his mouth to argue but gave up. Once Ken starts getting angry, nothing anyone says gets through to him. It would just add fuel to the fire.
You're the worst. Don't look down on me and think I'll always obey you. You're living on pensions. You just want to rely on my salary, don't you? Well, no way. I won't live with you. I'm independent. I can't take care of you.
That's not what we meant.
Don't talk back.
Ken slammed the table again, and Beth fell silent. I thought about how terrible it was for him to speak to his own parents like that, but arguing with him would be pointless. He believes he's always right, and everyone else is wrong. Besides, it's one thing for him to take his anger out on me, but if he ever lashed out at his parents, just thinking about it is terrifying.
Don't ever interfere with my life again. It makes me sick. I'm going out.
Ken stormed out of the house in a rage. The front door slammed shut with a deafening crash. He always makes loud, aggressive noises. This is probably part of his harassment toward us as well. In the space Ken left, Kyle and Beth slumped down.
Nora, we're sorry for being such lousy parents.
It's our fault for not raising him well.
Please don't say that. That's absolutely not true. I couldn't think of them as lousy parents when they had repeatedly tried to correct Ken's tantrums. Besides, when I first met him, Ken was polite and kind. It must have been thanks to his parents' upbringing. He's an adult now. Parenting and influences aren't excuses anymore. Ken's actions are Ken's responsibility, so there's no need for you two to feel guilty. Watching them feel so hurt by Ken's actions was painful for me. No matter how old a child gets, they're still their parent's child. But I believe there's no need for them to feel responsible for a son over 30. I might be out of line saying this, but Ken was kind until he turned 35. It's because you two raised him well. It's unfortunate he changed, but that's his responsibility. At first, I thought he was just busy with work or stressed from a new department. In hindsight, maybe that was the problem. Ken became more spoiled and kept deteriorating. Thinking that way, I feel more responsible as his wife than his parents. When I shared my thoughts, they quickly denied it with urgency.
That's not true. In an adult relationship, even as a married couple, feeling responsible for the other person's actions is unhealthy.
Nora, you've done nothing wrong. We can't thank you enough for staying with him.
I feel the same way. For a moment, they looked surprised, then smiled a little. It seemed they realized it was strange to feel responsible for Ken's behavior. Since I'm not responsible, there's no way my in-laws are either. Feeling a bit lighter, we had tea for about 30 minutes and then parted ways. A few days later, I made plans to visit my in-laws. "Hello, Kyle, Beth. Here's a little something for you." As promised, a few days later, I visited their home. Since it was during the weekday, Ken wouldn't find out because he was at work. I knew he'd be furious if he found out I visited them, so I kept it a secret.
Glad you could come, Nora. Come on in. Let's have lunch.
You didn't have to bring anything. Thank you. Let's enjoy it together after lunch.
Unlike Ken, my in-laws are very kind. They always warmly welcome me, even though we're not blood related. It was so enjoyable preparing lunch together. After a while, as we sat down to eat, Kyle asked me,
So what's this about?
It's about Ken, right?
Usually at this point, they'd start apologizing, but respecting what I said last time, they didn't. That made things easier for all of us. We all struggle with Ken. Yes, well, it seems like Ken is cheating on me.
I'm sorry, Nora, but I'm not too surprised.
Right. With the way he's been acting, it's not unexpected.
Their bluntness made me laugh. Honestly, I felt the same way. Yeah, while he was in the shower, I saw a notification on his phone. A message from a woman saying she had fun on Sunday. After that, I knew it was wrong, but I checked Ken's phone. The password was his birthday. When I checked the messaging app, I found explicit exchanges with a young woman from work, and I remember being astonished by his recklessness. It seems the cheating started around the time of his department transfer, when he was 35.
I see. He needed money for his affair, so he started yelling at you to save money.
Kyle sighed, his face clearly showing his exasperation.
Even with that personality, he managed to have an affair.
In front of his mistress, he's apparently kind and generous. That's the impression I got from the messages.
So all the consequences fall on you and us.
Reaching this conclusion, the three of us sighed deeply. The meal we made together with my in-laws was ruined. It tasted good, but I couldn't really enjoy it.
What should we do?
No matter what we say, his personality probably won't change. I could divorce him if things get worse, but Kyle and Beth, his blood relatives, don't have that option. So I don't want to run away either. I didn't want to burden my in-laws. Breaking the heavy silence, my phone rang. It was a call from Ken. Could he have found out I was at his parents' house? "Excuse me, I need to take this call," I told my in-laws and answered the phone. After a tense moment, Ken said something unexpected.
Dad collapsed. I'm coming home.
"What?" "Kyle is." Ken's voice was so loud that even though it wasn't on speakerphone, his parents could hear him. Kyle, who seemed to realize something, put his finger to his lips.
Shh.
Kyle's mischievous smile made him look 10 years younger. Following his cue, I kept quiet about his parents being right in front of me and just listened to Ken. 3 days later, still at my in-laws' house, I got another call from Ken. Surprised by the multiple missed calls, I answered, and a frantic Ken yelled into the phone.
Where are you right now? What's this divorce paper? Stop messing around.
His loud voice was easily heard by everyone around me. He didn't like that I had left the divorce papers and moved out. Beth gestured for me to put the phone on speaker, so I did. I'm not messing around. I'm serious.
What? Don't be naive. You've been a stay-at-home wife all this time. You can't live on your own.
How insulting. Beth and Kyle frowned. I answered calmly, without any emotion. Too bad. I've already got a job.
What?
Ken's voice trembled. Despite constantly berating me, it seemed divorce wasn't convenient for him. Naturally, losing a housekeeper who doesn't need a salary would be troublesome. Kyle's former company was looking for an office worker. He introduced me.
Dad?
He growled. Ken knew well how much his parents cared for me. He didn't like it and would complain that they were spoiling me. Before we got married, I worked as an office worker. It's a part-time position, but if I work hard, they might hire me full-time. I'm aiming for that.
So, this divorce is Dad's idea? Don't you have a mind of your own?
Ken's words left me astonished. Did he think I was just going along with someone else's wishes? If he believed I had no reason to want a divorce, he should reflect on his own behavior. I endured your awful treatment because Kyle and Beth were good to me. But when they said enough, it was clear. Divorce is the obvious choice.
Who do you think has been supporting you all this time? You're repaying kindness with betrayal.
Normally, I would stay quiet at this point. But since I had decided to divorce him, it didn't matter how angry he got. I took this opportunity to voice all the things I had been holding back. You can't do anything like housework, but you could live in a clean house, eat 3 meals properly, and always go to work in a clean suit. That's all thanks to me. Do you have any idea how hard it's been to cater to your selfish demands? You're the one who's repaying kindness with betrayal.
Jeez.
He didn't expect me to fight back. Ken's voice wavered with obvious panic, but he quickly regained his composure and started yelling again.
You've been living off me, so that's the least you could do. I don't owe you anything, and I've been providing for you every day, so I don't deserve this blame from you.
Oh, really? Is that so? My voice was cold, causing Ken to panic again. He wasn't used to being attacked. But being a prideful person, he couldn't help but retaliate.
What do you want to say? If you have something to say it clearly.
And with that, he pulled the trigger on his own downfall. Then I'll say it. Over the past 3 days, you've been lying about Kyle being in the hospital and spending time with your mistress, Karen, haven't you?
No way. What are you talking about? I don't understand.
I could practically see the beads of sweat forming on Ken's face. He never expected to be caught. He thought I had no reason to want a divorce, and that I didn't have a mind of my own. He didn't anticipate me taking any unexpected actions. It was truly astonishing. I have your conversation logs from the messaging app and photos of you two leaving the hotel 2 days ago.
You spied on me and took secret photos? That's an invasion of privacy.
Don't act all high and mighty after cheating. I snapped back, and Ken, shocked by my outburst, fell completely silent. My in-laws, who had been watching, silently urged me to continue. Feeling a bit embarrassed, but also emboldened, I relished the chance to finally get back at Ken. You might not know this, but the hotel you used is run by one of Kyle's acquaintances. The cleaning company that services that hotel employs a friend of Beth's, and the restaurant you went to with Karen is owned by a friend of Kyle's from college. They all saw you two together and reported back to Kyle and Beth. After Ken called saying he was going back home, we started gathering evidence of his affair. It turned out that friends of Kyle and Beth had witnessed Ken and Karen multiple times. These friends, knowing Ken only from childhood, hadn't noticed anything before, but were helpful when asked. I don't know why you were fooling around locally, but your mistakes made gathering evidence really easy. So thank you for that. Ken is silent. He's probably speechless. I seize the moment and continue. I will be demanding alimony from both you and Karen.
Alimony.
He finally snaps out of it when money is mentioned. Typical of his miserly nature. Suppressing my contempt, I continue. I'm not withdrawing our divorce, so just sign the papers and file them. Otherwise, we'll settle it in court. I've kept a detailed diary of all the mistreatment I've suffered from him. Even though infidelity alone is grounds for divorce, the diary will help me get a higher alimony. Originally, I started writing it as a way to calm myself, as a hobby. Ken had forbidden me from going out or spending money on myself, so I kept it along with the household budget. The thought that Ken's own actions are now backfiring on him makes me feel almost giddy with satisfaction. Goodbye. Ken was still shouting on the other end of the line, but I had nothing more to say, so I hung up.
Nora, you look very refreshed.
Do I?
Let's splurge a little on dinner tonight to celebrate your fresh start.
Despite having no home to return to after the divorce, my in-laws, who had invited me to stay with them, continued to treat me like their own daughter. Having endured Ken's behavior together, we felt a bond stronger than family. Feeling a mix of embarrassment and joy, I nodded with a big smile that matched theirs. Yes, just when I thought it was all over, a commotion happened soon after I started my new job.
Hey, you're Nora Johnson, right?
Yes. On my way home from work, I turned to the voice calling me. It was Karen Harper, Ken's mistress.
Why do I have to pay alimony too? Do you think I'd seriously be involved with that old man? I only kept him around because he was a good sugar daddy. You couldn't control him, so he cheated. Don't drag me into this.
Her face was flushed with anger. She swung her brand name bag around, looking like she was ready to pounce on me. A coworker nearby looked surprised and hid from Karen. Then, signaling me with her phone, she indicated she was calling the police. I figured I could leave that part to her. Sorry, but the law allows me to claim alimony from my spouse's affair partner. You knew what you were doing, right? If not, you'll have to chalk it up to poor risk management.
What? Don't mock me. You plain old woman. Jealous because I'm young?
Karen, stomping her feet, looks more like a child than a young woman. A child throwing a tantrum because she didn't get her way. Come to think of it, Ken acted like a child too. Maybe they're alike. If that's the case, they're a perfect match. Whether they get along or last long is another matter. As a parting gift, I'll let you have Ken instead of alimony. I hope you're happy together.
Are you stupid? I don't want an old man like him. Isn't that obvious?
She had said the same thing when she approached me, so she must mean it. Ken is being abandoned by both his wife and his mistress. Karen kept making a scene. but the police eventually took her away, thanks to a colleague's call.
Let go of me. Don't touch me. I'll sue you.
Thinking that Karen is the one who might get sued, I ignore her and thank my colleague. I'm sorry for the trouble. Thank you for calling the police.
It's fine. I heard a little about what's going on. It sounds tough for you, Nora. This is all I can do, but hang in there.
Since Kyle used to work there, the people at the company are very kind. Many seem to have been helped by Kyle, so they're nice to me because of his introduction. After bowing and saying goodbye to my colleague, I see I have a call on my phone. Seeing that the call was from Ken, I decided to answer it with the police officer nearby.
Nora? It's me, Ken. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Let's start over.
The voice coming through the phone was completely different, almost groveling. Feeling nothing but disgust, I frowned. Kyle and Beth said they can't take care of you anymore.
I know. They told me. You're all I have left. So please, Nora.
Does he really think I'd sympathize with him over this? Don't insult me. I have pride and feelings too. I've endured enough mistreatment not to feel any pity. I can't take care of you either. Enjoy your life with Karen.
Wait. Karen dumped me.
He didn't realize I knew that. It's a predictable outcome. No young woman would seriously want a man like Ken.
She got mad about the alimony and said, I'm not paying anything. You pay it. Then we fought, and now she won't even talk to me.
Serves him right, but Ken seemed genuinely hurt.
I just got carried away. I lost sight of myself. Please forgive me.
I've told you many times it's over.
But I'm apologizing here.
Gone was the groveling tone, replaced by anger. The police officer who had been about to leave stopped and stared.
You're at my parents' house, right? I know it. Don't think you can get away with this. And my parents. I'm their real son, but they all gang up on me with you. I'm already outside the house. I'll make you pay.
At this point, there was no denying it. Ken had once again pulled the trigger on his own misfortune. I'm recording this call.
What?
Ken's previously furious voice suddenly became meek. He must have realized the severity of what he said. But it was too late. There's a police officer nearby. You're on speaker, so the police are already listening. They're contacting others via radio right now. Indeed, the officer was talking urgently into his radio and heading quickly to his patrol car.
No way. That's a lie.
You said, I'll make you pay. I'm outside the house. That's more than enough evidence. You really are easy to handle. Ken started mumbling excuses on the other end of the line. You're wrong. It was just in the heat of the moment, Ken muttered, but his words were slurred and hard to understand. Plus, the sound of police sirens in the background made it even harder to hear him. Kyle and Beth have told you many times to work on your temper. You really are hopeless. It seemed Ken couldn't hear me. Right before I hung up, he was still muttering something, seemingly in shock. Later, Ken was ordered to stay away from both me and his parents. Thanks to his reckless behavior, the divorce and alimony claims went smoothly. Ken is now paying alimony in installments. His new job is with an acquaintance of Kyle's, who agreed to deduct the alimony from Ken's salary. Rumors spread about his affair and abusive behavior, making his work environment very uncomfortable. It's widely speculated that he might quit soon, but it's doubtful any local company would hire him. Karen also found it hard to stay at her job and quit. She managed to pay the alimony by selling the branded bags and clothes Ken had given her. I heard she's working night jobs now, and her spending has gotten worse because she's infatuated with a younger guy. She's even in debt, so who knows how long we'll keep hearing about her. With Kyle and Beth's encouragement, I started living with them. They even adopted me, and we became a real family without Ken. I decided to cook for them on weekends. Dinner's ready. Come on, let's eat.
It looks delicious again tonight.
Nora, you're such a great cook.
Beth and Kyle enjoy my cooking with such delight. Just watching them warms my heart. Next week, Beth is in charge of cooking, and she's going to make my favorite dish.
Why don't we all go shopping tomorrow?
I'll drive. Where should we go?
Let's take a little trip and eat out on the way back.
I lost my parents early, and I always longed for a family. I envied the warmth of having parents. Though I didn't find that family through marriage, I feel that I've finally found my ideal family here. I'll cherish these people who cherish me. As long as I have them in my life, and as long as I know they love me, I will be happy forever.
I love you, Grandma. Come again.
As I remembered these words from my granddaughter, I decided to call my son and his wife's house. However, when John answered the phone, I could hear Emily yelling in the background, sounding very upset.
Enough already. Tell her not to come. I don't care about your mom. Just tell her to give us money instead of coming, money.
As a mother-in-law, it's not unusual to feel avoided, but this aggression was certainly not normal. I was terribly confused. The mysteries only deepen, leaving me wondering what exactly is going on.
Save Dad before me.
When rescued, Anna's voice was hoarse, her body still trembling. Yet, she desperately cared for John. It amazed me how such a small body could hold so much courage and love. Calm down, me. I must save Anna and John. I must respond to this call, I told myself as I stood up, encouraged. I'll save them, whatever it takes. After all, the fate of these two dear people is entrusted to me. I am Catherine Smith, aged 64. Currently, I live alone in an apartment. I'm a former single mom. I worked until I was 60 and raised John on my own. Eventually, as he grew up and moved out for school, he became independent. Now, I work part-time 3 days a week, living a comfortable life. The happy news came about 7 years ago. John said he was getting married, and the bride was a beautiful woman, 9 years his junior. John was 30 at the time. Being 9 years younger, the young lady was 21. Her name is Emily. They met through a mutual friend and hit it off immediately.
We grew up just with my mom and sister after our parents split up early, so I really understand how John values his mother.
Emily said with a radiant smile. Of course, I was all for their marriage and wholeheartedly blessed their union.
Actually, Emily is already pregnant.
Being surprised by the shy smiles of the young couple is now a cherished memory. Soon, my adorable granddaughter Anna was born. Their house is a 20-minute drive from mine. When Anna was younger, I often looked after her, and those were days filled with even more joy. I never imagined that such a shocking event would follow. My happy life came to an abrupt end. As soon as Anna started elementary school, all contact ceased. They must be busy. Maybe Emily started a job. I thought, trying to console myself. They say no news is good news, and if they didn't need me, I would be happy for them. Emily's parents lived farther away than I did, so I thought they might rely on me again if needed. Indeed, until last year, I was often called over to babysit Anna.
I love you, Grandma. Come again.
I remember Anna always saying that and waving until she couldn't see me anymore. My desire to see her again grew. However, even as a grandmother, I shouldn't meet her without her parents' permission. Besides, if they didn't need help, I should be able to see her during summer or winter breaks. I decided to wait patiently for them to contact me. But when summer actually came, my expectations were dashed. Weeks passed without a visit or even a phone call. Maybe I should just go visit? I thought to myself and decided to call John in the evening. I intended to check their availability first, since dropping by unannounced would be rude. I plan to visit during a holiday when it's convenient for them. To avoid being a nuisance, I should probably leave after an hour or two. As I listened to the phone ring, I wondered what I should bring as a gift. But the response from John on the phone was unexpected.
Emily says it would be troublesome. She's tired and doesn't want to meet. Sorry, but could you please hold off this year?
I was stunned at first, but slowly I began to understand. Meeting me was a burden for Emily. It's easy to forget, but to her, I'm her mother-in-law. I had thought we were getting along like friends, but maybe Emily had been feeling pressured all along. If she's tired, I could help out with the chores, but maybe my coming over would be more of a nuisance. I ventured cautiously. John moved the phone away from his mouth to say something. Thinking he was probably talking to Emily, I held my breath and waited. Then, in a tone I had never heard before, Emily's annoyed voice faintly reached me.
Enough already. Tell her not to come. I don't care about your mom. Just tell her to send money instead of coming, money.
Although the voice was distant and not entirely clear, that seemed to be the gist. Can you imagine how shocked I was? I was so stunned I couldn't speak. As I was speechless, a very apologetic John's voice came through.
Sorry, I appreciate the sentiment, but she doesn't want you in the house. She just started at jobs, maybe part-time, and it's tiring her out, making her edgy.
I was simply stunned. I hadn't realized I was so disliked. I think I responded with something like, okay, or I see, but I was not sure. Disheartened, I hung up the phone. After hanging up, I regretted not asking to at least talk to Anna. More than wanting to visit, I just wanted to see John and Anna's faces. For Emily, Having an outsider like me in her family-only home must be stressful. I too remember feeling tense when my mother-in-law used to visit while I was still married to my ex-husband. It's not hard to understand why Emily would be reluctant. If this keeps up, there might come a day when I won't be allowed to see my granddaughter. I reflected deeply on this. At the same time, I realized that indeed Emily had started working. She had married John soon after entering the workforce and became a housewife. Her last job was in an office, I heard. If she's doing a standing job part-time, it might be more tiring. As John said, she might be too physically and mentally exhausted to accept various things. I hurriedly sent John an apology message. Sorry about earlier. Please apologize to Emily for me as well. Having people over can really be a hassle, I understand. I've reflected on it. I just wanted to see Anna's cheerful face, so maybe you could send a picture sometime. If you can make it back during the summer break, please let me know then. With a prayerful heart, I waited for a reply. Surprisingly, the phone rang sooner than I expected. It was John's number, so I answered quickly. But to my surprise, it wasn't John who started talking, but Emily.
Hello? Thank you. I appreciate your concern.
Her voice was weak, a stark contrast to the strong yelling I had overheard earlier. It sounded like she was truly exhausted. For a moment, I wasn't sure whom to believe, but either way, it wouldn't change what I needed to do. Whether her true feelings were one way or another, the fact that she was trying to get along with me was something I should appreciate. Thinking this, I made an effort to sound cheerful. It's been a while, Emily. I heard you started working. You must be working hard. It's tough, isn't it? Sorry for saying I'd drop by during such times. Then, Emily exaggeratedly moaned a big hum. I could even hear her sniffing. If she was truly crying, that would be quite emotionally unstable.
Yes, I'm really exhausted. It's the latter half of the summer break, but I'm sorry, this time is not good either.
Emily sounded very sad. I began to worry that maybe her emotions were indeed in disarray. Concern was starting to outweigh my doubts. Hormonal imbalance, stress, and other possible causes of her condition crossed my mind. I'd much rather she just disliked her mother-in-law. Of course, it's okay. I'm sorry for pushing. It's totally fine. But more importantly, are you okay, Emily? Are you getting enough rest? I spoke gently, taking great care not to upset her. Emily was silent for a while. I waited anxiously for her response for several seconds. Finally, a slightly happier-sounding voice came from the other end of the phone.
I'm fine. So, bye.
After a brief farewell, the call ended. I involuntarily sighed. The atmosphere wasn't right to ask to see my granddaughter. Emily's condition worried me, but John's yes-man behavior was also concerning. I wondered if this was just how young couples are these days, but no clear answers came. With a lingering sense of unease, I resigned myself to the situation. About 30 minutes after the call, I received a message from John. It reads, "Can we meet during tomorrow's lunch break?" Since I was off the next day, I quickly replied, "Okay." The following day, we decided to meet for lunch at a diner near John's workplace. John looked tired when I saw him. His words lacked energy.
Lately, Emily has been acting strange. She goes out every night, comes back drunk, and then is bedridden with a hangover. She could ask you or her parents to take care of Anna, but she refuses. Honestly, it's troubling.
John then took a key out of his pocket and handed it to me. It seemed to be the spare key to their house.
Just in case I can't get up because of illness or something, can I call you?
I accepted the key, trying to suppress my anxiety. John asking for such a favor was not a good sign. Even after getting home, I was too worried to sit still. After 3 days of agonizing, I sent John a message. I wanted to talk directly again to hear more about his concerns. "Can you talk now?" He should be at home at this time. Normally, I would get some kind of message back right away. But no matter how long I waited, there was no reply. By midnight, I even started thinking about visiting their house. But finally, a reply came.
Busy. Can't for a while.
The message was curt. My unease did not subside. The next day, I called John's workplace, wondering if I was overreacting. But then I learned something alarming. John had been ill and hadn't come to work for the past 2 days. Indeed, he looked pale when we met 4 days ago. If he had fallen ill after that, it wasn't inconceivable. But then, would he really reply busy instead of sick to my message? Beyond a mere gut feeling, emergency alarms are blaring in my head. I rushed to John and Emily's house. No one answered when I rang the doorbell. When I entered with the spare key, I found several heavy stones piled up in the kitchen. They were shaped like curling stones and weighed about 22 pounds each. Why here? I wondered. Then I heard a noise. Looking around, I saw Anna outside on the balcony. I hurried to open the window and was shocked. Anna was chained up, wasn't she? The robust metal chain was thin but sturdy, not easily removed. It was cold outside. I quickly took off my coat and wrapped Anna in it. She was shivering, perhaps from the cold. But when she looked up at me, she cried out,
"Save Daddy first."
confused about what it meant. I hugged Anna as I listened for more of her story.
Mommy locked Daddy under the kitchen floor. He's under those heavy round things. Please, hurry and help.
Breathless at this unimaginable revelation. Following Anna's plea, I moved the weights aside and found a trapdoor to the underfloor storage. Cautiously opening it, I found John lying at the bottom of a dark, cramped storage space. I screamed, "John!" No response. I reached out desperately. His body was warm. He was alive. I tried desperately to pull him out, but John, unconscious, was too heavy, making it impossible to lift him. I started to panic. Just then, I heard a car. I caught my breath sharply. I thought it would be bad if Emily came back and saw this situation. If it was just Emily, maybe it'd be better, but if she had a man with her, I would stand no chance. I rushed to the front door and secured the chain. It turned out not to be Emily, as there was no sign of anyone. Instead, moving around helped clear my head. I told myself, calm down, me. I must save Anna and John. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 in a frenzy. Later, I realized that calling an ambulance could have been an option, but at that moment, I was not in a state to think about it. All I could focus on was getting help. My son is unresponsive under the floor, and my granddaughter is chained up, unable to free herself. She says her mom did this, and my son's wife is not home. Please help now. I explained the situation and location as requested. The operator's voice was tense. They promised to come quickly, and I repeatedly pleaded for haste. I wasn't sure how long Emily had been gone or where she might be. When I asked Anna, all she could do was cry and say, "I don't know." Anna and I managed to pull the chain to its limits and somehow got back inside. I wrapped Anna in a blanket. I tore off the bed and held her tight. "It's okay. Your grandma will definitely save you. I will protect you." I returned to my unconscious son. His lips were dry, which concerned me, but there was no way to give him a drink right now. He was breathing. I couldn't understand why he wouldn't open his eyes. I was desperately praying for the police or paramedics to arrive quickly, when suddenly, I heard rattling at the front door. Startled, I jumped up. Though I hadn't noticed any car sound, Emily had returned. It seems I hadn't heard her because I was absorbed in my actions. Trembling, I returned to Anna and hugged her tightly. Anna was crying more than I was, clearly terrified. She seemed to be struggling to keep quiet, a sure sign of her fear.
What the hell is this?
Emily shouted as she tried several times to force the door open with great force. It sounded as if she were kicking the door. Perhaps she saw my shoes through the small gap the chain allowed and yelled even louder.
Are you kidding me, old woman? Did you have a key? I'll smash you too.
Emily banged on the door repeatedly. The chain looked like it might break, and pale-faced, I was prepared to fight. I quietly moved away from Anna, heading to the kitchen. Looking for something to use as a weapon, I found a frying pan. Thinking I had to protect Anna at all costs, I approached the front door, ready to defend us. Just then, I heard the sound of a police car approaching from a distance. The sound grew closer and closer. They must have been coming because of my call. Emily stopped rattling the door and stood still. I raised my voice. "Here, we're here, the ones who called. Help us." Then, Emily let go of the doorknob and hurried away. As I was slumping down, the doorbell rang. I screamed softly, but then I heard a male voice from outside.
"Excuse me, are you okay? We're from the Central Police Station. Did you call us?"
Crying, I stumbled to the door, unlocked the chain, and let them in. The police quickly assessed the situation and called for paramedics. While waiting for the ambulance, they briefly questioned me about what had happened. Soon, Anna and John were safely extracted and taken for emergency medical care. I accompanied them to the hospital. Even at the hospital, I couldn't immediately relax. Fortunately, Anna's life was not in danger. She had visibly lost weight and appeared severely malnourished. The tests showed she was slightly dehydrated, but otherwise okay. The memory of her shivering from the cold was still vivid in my mind, and I was deeply relieved she didn't have a fever. It seemed she could recover with proper nutrition. The problem was John. Upon arrival at the hospital, he remained unconscious. No response to tapping or shaking. I continued calling his name until a nurse pulled me away. "John, John, please, wake up."
Daddy,
Anna was sobbing too. I held Anna tightly, continuing to pray for John's safety. While waiting for treatment, I gradually heard more from Anna.
Mom locked up Dad, and when I told her to stop, she got really mad and sent me outside. If I yelled outside, I'd get in even more trouble, so I tried really hard not to cry.
Anna clung to me and shared in a tiny voice, imagining what it must have been like to see her father in such a situation, how terrified she must have been. Yet the courage she showed by speaking up made me feel both happy and strong. It was cold, wasn't it? Scary, wasn't it? Was it then, with that chain? I remembered the chain that had been used to tie Anna. The cold chain against her bare skin. It was truly pitiful. But why was there a chain there at all?
Yes, but even when Dad wasn't around, I was sometimes chained up before. Mom would say I'm in the way, to stop running around, and she'd chain me up. It's been like that since I was much smaller.
I shuddered. If that was the case, Anna might have been chained up even when I used to come over to take care of things, without my knowing. I almost blurted out asking why she had never mentioned it before, but swallowed my words. It was too cruel to blame such a small child. It wasn't easy for her to seek help for something her mother did to her inside the home, especially if it started before she was even 7 years old. She might not have clearly understood how abnormal it was. An adult should have noticed. I should have noticed. With intense regret and renewed anger towards Emily, I felt. What concerned me was how much John knew about it. I decided to ask Anna, "Did Dad know about the chain?" Anna shook her head. No words came out. I held Anna close, patiently waiting. Eventually, Anna, with tears filling her eyes, answered.
Mom said if I told Dad or Grandma, she would get very angry, so I kept it a secret all this time. When Grandma is around, Mom doesn't do anything mean to me. Mom is the kindest when Grandma is there, so I liked Mom then.
Despite all that had happened, Anna had not given up on her mother, Emily. This time, I couldn't hold back and started sobbing loudly. Anna cried along with me. The time it took for John's treatment to finish felt incredibly long. It probably felt longer than it actually was. Later, I learned that John had been pushed into a small space under the floor for about 2 days without food or water. Fortunately, The duct tape was only loosely applied, so it wasn't completely airtight. That meant he had no trouble breathing. Finally, the awaited news arrived. After receiving hydration and other treatments, John finally woke up. I was immensely relieved, and together with Anna, we rushed to John's side. John smiled at seeing Anna, and we rejoiced together over being safe. The next day, John's account made Emily's actions clear. Emily had told John to clean under the floor, and once he was down there, she closed the lid. John tried to get out, but couldn't open the lid.
Mom put a heavy round stone on it and stood on it.
Anna, now recovered, also testified. The police listened solemnly to both of their stories.
Emily's behavior changed significantly after Anna started elementary school. But now that I think about it, there might have been signs before that.
John muttered sadly. His gaze towards the ceiling was vague and anxious. After the police left, we were able to talk more in detail.
There were a few times when Emily went out with friends and came back late. The next day, Anna was unusually quiet. I thought she was just being considerate because her mom looked hungover, but maybe Emily was harsh to her when I wasn't watching back then too.
John sighed. Being much younger than himself, he thought it was just young people's behavior to go out with friends and drink too much. He mentioned that there were no suspicious activities, only meetings with female friends, and he had been shown photos taken together as proof.
I thought it was okay since she was supposed to be taking care of house chores and Anna during the day. It would be a break for her. If only I had paid more attention to Anna's condition.
Saying that, John sadly cast down his eyes. Despite being in danger himself, all he could think about was caring for Anna. He had become such a gentle father, which made me feel a bit proud. That for Emily, that kindness might have been seen as a reason to think she could get away with more selfishness. Thanks to Anna and John getting better, Emily's malice has become even more apparent. I did my best to comfort them, and when they were discharged, I told them to come to my house for a while. I thought there was no need for them to return to a place that had been searched by the police and where they had unpleasant memories. They nodded and thanked me. The police, of course, began searching for Emily on suspicion of arrest and confinement. They started by checking around the house, but she was not found immediately. While I kept an eye on John and Anna, the police asked me about the situation.
First, please tell us about the situation when you found your granddaughter and son. Also, do you have any idea where your daughter-in-law might have gone?
I tried to calm myself with a deep breath. John, still looking exhausted, and Anna, still showing signs of emotional hurt. Filled with an inability to forgive Emily, I needed to remain calm. Emily, I mean, where might she go? Well, I'm not sure exactly, maybe. I shared my lead with the police. I didn't know much about Emily's range of activities, but there was one thing I did know. After finishing with the police, I sent a message following that lead. Let's see, the text should say, Emily has done terrible things to her husband and daughter. She's currently on the run. Luckily, both are safe, but were hospitalized, so the police are involved. If you see Emily, please contact me or the police. Is this okay? My message received many responses, mostly shocked faces and pale character stamps. There was also a strong "got it" dog stamp. Since they're all young women, the responses on the messaging app were lively. But my lead was just this one place. If she had gone to someone I didn't know, there would be nothing I could do. I waited for news with a prayerful heart. The very next day, Emily was arrested. After fleeing, she crashed at one of her friends' homes. Just the outcome I had hoped for. Had our usual conduct been good, I wondered privately with joy.
I just came over to hang out. Let me stay. Had a fight with my husband. Got bullied by my mother-in-law, but John didn't stand up for me.
That's how Emily brazenly spoke, according to her friend. Had I not sent the message beforehand, her friend would have believed her. I'm glad I sent the message. It just so happened to be at a friend's house who also knows me. The recipients of my message about the incident were Emily's close friends. Let me reveal why I knew these people's contacts. Actually, I'm quite good at socializing. At the wedding, I easily approached Emily's friends, young ladies, and exchanged contact information. Without Emily realizing, I became acquainted with her friends. Now, I am quite friendly with several of them on SNS. Whether Emily knew it or not, or even if she did, she probably didn't care. Being able to get ahead and spread the word was a key to victory. An alert was quickly circulated among Emily's friends. My story was believed quickly, perhaps because there was a slight belief among them that Emily could do something like this. Neither John nor I had noticed, but it seems Emily originally had a terribly selfish and scary side. Emily was arrested while cursing foully and complaining incessantly. Although I was glad about the swift arrest, it made me a bit disheartened to realize neither parent nor child had a good sense of people. Nevertheless, it was finally over. More than feeling joyful, I was relieved. Months later, during Emily's interrogation, an astonishing fact came to light. It turned out that Anna was not John's daughter. Furthermore, even the identity of the father was unknown. Before marrying John, Emily had led a reckless, flirtatious life. She would party late into the night, enjoying one-night stands. By the time she realized she was pregnant, she had been involved with more men than one could count on one hand. In short, she had multiple partners other than John. The reason she chose John was that he was the highest earner among the men she was seeing.
When I told him I was pregnant with his child, he was so blindly happy that I thought he was easy to manipulate. I married him thinking I could do as I pleased.
The level of John's disappointment upon hearing this was profound. Naturally, I was furious. How terrible, unforgivable. I felt anger towards Emily, but also frustration with myself for having been so happy about their marriage without knowing the truth. My concern now was for Anna. How could we possibly tell a 7-year-old girl that John wasn't her father? After discovering the truth, John and I agonized over how to break the news to Anna. Can such a small child handle this truth? I couldn't bring myself to simply tell the truth. Since it was certain that Anna would be deeply hurt, I wanted to handle the matter with great care. However, John was in torment. If he wasn't her real father, then she had another father out there. It seems he can't help but wonder if it's okay to keep silent about it.
She might want to know the truth someday.
After days of discussion, we decided not to tell her for the time being. There had to be a right way to do it, and it wasn't something to be rushed. Moreover, the motive behind Emily's horrific actions was revealed. She had become obsessed with a nightclub, pouring money into it. When a favored staff member urged her to spend more, Emily eventually tapped into John's bank account. Fearing discovery, she took preemptive action to silence him by locking him in an underfloor storage space. Sobbing uncontrollably, Emily confessed,
I wanted to contribute more to the club. I thought it would be convenient if my husband disappeared, even better if it meant I could collect the insurance money and visit the club more often.
Hearing that she still desired to meet the nightclub staff, I was speechless. It was a marriage initially motivated by money. It's clear that there was no love involved. But is it solely Emily's fault that her sense of ethics shattered to this extent? Or does some of the blame lie with the club staff she encountered? I can't say for sure. There were others beside myself who were appalled by what Emily said. These were Emily's own mother and sister. Initially, Emily's family had intended to welcome her back after she atoned. But upon hearing her testimony, they declared a complete severance of ties. Eventually, Emily, having been definitively sentenced, was sent to prison. Now completely estranged from her family, there was no one left to send her care packages behind bars. She faced a profoundly lonely life ahead. Now, knowing Anna wasn't biologically related raised new concerns for me. I fear that John might grow to dislike Anna because she isn't his real daughter. The shock hit me hard too. It's incredibly sad to realize she isn't my biological granddaughter. Yet, memories of delightful times with sweet Anna keep flashing through my mind. I anxiously awaited John's response.
For 7 years, I've raised Anna without a doubt. More than fearing I might never wake up while I was trapped, I feared not being able to protect Anna. I intend to continue raising her as my precious daughter.
John declared in a calm but resolute voice. I felt a wave of relief. 10 years have passed since that incident. Afterward, John, Anna, and I began living together. That means we've been living as a trio for 10 years. Looking back, it seems like it all went by in a flash, feeling more like just 2 or 3 years rather than a decade. While John and I haven't changed much as adults, it's Anna's growth that truly marks the passage of time. Both were deeply scarred physically and emotionally because of Emily's actions. However, they gradually recovered, fueled by the loving meals I prepared. John has since expressed no interest in remarrying. A perfectly understandable sentiment. Instead, he poured his efforts into his work, which led to a promotion. Thankfully, this has allowed all of us living together to enjoy a more prosperous life. Apart from his luck with women, John has really turned out to be a fine son. Now, Anna is a beautiful 17-year-old high school student. Recently, she brought home her first boyfriend. It's still very much a childlike relationship, but watching them study together is endearing.
To think she chose such a scrawny boy with glasses.
John grumbled, but I really felt like holding up a mirror to him. Because that earnest, slightly timid boy is a spitting image of John when he was younger. Blood ties or not, Anna is undoubtedly John's daughter. Our family of 3 lives happily today. I look forward to continuing this joyful life together with John and Anna.
Is it again?
I can't help it. It's work. I'll be back Sunday night.
We have been married for 10 years. My husband, Tom, who was promoted to a management position about 5 years ago, has been increasingly required to stay overnight for business trips out of state on weekends. With nothing else to do but send him off quietly whenever he says it's for work. I've taken care of everything at home and all the kids' events by myself. Is it really just work? I've started to have my doubts. After all, there are casual clothes in Tom's luggage besides his suits. When I ask him, he says he changes when he goes out to eat, but it just doesn't seem right. Would Tom, who dislikes hassle, really do something like that? I'm Sarah, 40-year-old stay-at-home mom. I have 2 children in elementary school. My husband Tom works in the sales department of a manufacturing company. I was working at his client's office when I first met Tom, who came in for sales, and I fell for him at first sight. After dating for 2 years, we got married. When our kids were little, we would spend weekends at the park or go out as a family, and I think we were like any other happy family. But now it feels almost like a single-parent family. The kids seem lonely too, and I'm filled with guilt. Then one day, I found something. While cleaning Tom's room, I noticed a letterhead from a fancy hotel in another region. He probably used it for some notes. It was Tom's handwriting, scribbling something about work, but there's no way he'd stay at such a nice hotel for a business trip. This must have been where he stayed last weekend, alone or with someone else. That was the moment my suspicions almost turned into certainty. I took photos discreetly for evidence, put everything back as it was, and decided to hire a detective agency that I had looked into before. Tom probably thinks I, a stay-at-home mom, wouldn't have the money to hire a detective, but in reality, I've been saving up little by little and have a bit of income from simple work I do at home. The results of the investigation came back quickly. Probably it seems that the affair might have started around the time his business trips increased. His affair partner was a woman, Ellie, who had been with the same company for 5 years. Tom, using his management position, had been preying on female employees. What a jerk he is. He must have thought he wouldn't get caught, or he wasn't even trying to hide it. The detective was amazed at how easy the investigation was. It turns out Tom spends 2 days a week at Ellie's apartment. I had no idea, but it seems Tom's company has 2 fixed early leaving days per week, and on those days, he always spends time with her, pretending to work late and coming home just before the last train. It's astonishing how he could come home and say things like, "I'm tired and working late is tough." Maybe if I had checked the overtime pay, I would have seen that his hours didn't match up, but the affair started just as he got promoted to a management position and stopped receiving overtime pay, so I never noticed. Unaware that I was investigating, Tom kept coming home late from work as usual. And then here we go again.
I've got another business trip next weekend.
It infuriates me to think I've been deceived, but I can't let it show on my face or in my voice. I have to act normal. Again, haven't your business trips been frequent lately?
It can't be helped. I have a job that only I can do.
Oh, really? Work that only he can do, huh? Must be special work with your mistress that only you can do. He's acting all high and mighty, not even realizing I'm almost on to him. I know it's work, but where's the business trip to next?
It's Chicago. Hey guys, Daddy's going on another business trip, so I'll bring back some souvenirs. What would you like?
He smoothly changed the subject to souvenirs and went over to the kids. Looks like the next trip is to Chicago. And then the weekend arrived.
Well, I'm going then.
Take care. You'll be back Sunday night, right?
Yeah, I'll have dinner out.
So an outsider, we must seem like a happy couple. He leaves first thing Saturday morning for an overnight affair trip and doesn't come back until after having dinner together on Sunday evening. What a joke. I'm furious, but as Tom walked out the door, I said to his back, "Enjoy your last affair trip." With that, I closed the front door.
What?
I thought I saw Tom turn around, but by that time, I was already inside the house. Now, I need to put my plan into action. It's going to be busy. First, I need to pack up everything before the movers I arranged come. My kids are with my mother, who took them to the amusement park, and they will stay overnight at my parents' house. I feel sorry for the kids, having to leave home without understanding why. But it's all that man's fault. Even I, who have been a relaxed stay-at-home mom, found out I can muster incredible power when needed. I managed to pack up quickly and hand over the stuff and some furniture to the movers without a hitch. The essentials for the kids were taken to my father's house by car, and the rest I've stored temporarily in a rented storage unit. And next, I headed to Chicago. I had asked the detective to find out which hotel Tom and Ellie were staying at. Careless as ever, Tom didn't even use a fake name, but booked under his own and paid with his credit card that manages our household finances. Thanks to that, we found out their hotel immediately. But since Tom manages our finances, he's probably always done it this way. I can't help but feel frustrated with myself for not realizing it sooner. After waiting a few hours at the hotel, they might have been sightseeing. Tom and Ellie entered the hotel, acting all lovey-dovey like fools. Well, so that's the type of woman he likes. He's old enough. They acted like such a ridiculous couple, and I don't know where to look. Probably because they figured they wouldn't know anyone in Chicago. They let their guard down completely. The two of them lined up at the front desk to check in. I decided to ambush them from a sofa in the hallway leading to the elevator area. After they finished checking in, they walked toward here, completely oblivious to everything but each other, and didn't even notice me despite my not being in disguise. I stood up and deliberately walked towards them, as if to bump into them. Only then did Tom and Ellie turn their faces towards me, as if they were about to bump into me. Ellie, of course, had no idea who I was and looked annoyed.
"Who's this lady? Move out of the way."
Tom turned pale. His eyes were wide open, his mouth half agape.
Why are you here?
His expression screamed it, even though he didn't say a word. Ellie tried to go quickly by pulling Tom's arm, but Tom couldn't move. He must have been frantically trying to figure out what to do next. The thought almost made me laugh. "I came here too," I said brightly, with a purposeful smile.
No, why did you come?
His eyes couldn't look at a point. He looked completely flustered. Is work done already? That was quick. Tom didn't respond. I turned my gaze to the woman, gazed from top to bottom in a way that seemed as rude as possible, then smiled and said, "Who might this lady be?" I tried to ask in a light, almost giggly tone. Tom scrambled to untie his arm from hers and mumbled,
Well, she is a colleague of mine.
"You're arm in arm with your colleague. Do you even do that at work?" I wanted to retort, but let it slide. Instead, I turned to Ellie with a bright smile. "Hello, I'm his wife, Sarah. Nice to meet you." Realizing the situation, Ellie pulled away from Tom with a shocked expression. "You were checking in quite cozily together, weren't you?" I said, showing Tom a photo I had secretly taken. Tom looked panicked.
Hey, did you take a photo? No, it's not what it looks like. You're mistaken.
He was still trying to deny it. Mistaken, as if that could be. Couldn't he come up with a better excuse? Well, no matter. I accomplished what I came to Chicago for. Well then, I'll be going home now. Let's talk when you're back from your business trip. Bye-bye. I waved and left the hotel. What those two did after that, I have no idea, but Tom returned home as planned on Sunday night. I had been wondering whether he would come back at all.
I'm home. Hey, Sarah, are you there?
He shouted. I see. It seems he chose to be angry. He's trying to intimidate me to cover up his faults. No way. I won't let him do that. I'm here.
If you're there, at least respond.
He stomped loudly, trying to intimidate me, but the shock was on his face when he opened the living room door. And no wonder. Not only was I there, but both our parents were waiting for his return. Everyone stared at Tom silently until his father, John, spoke up.
Sit down.
Before Tom arrived, I had shown our parents all the evidence from the past 5 years, the detective's findings, and what I had seen and documented in Chicago. John, usually cheerful and gentle, spoke sternly, causing Tom to flinch and awkwardly take a seat.
Do you have anything to say? If you do, I'm listening.
It's imposing when someone who's usually calm gets angry. With just that one line, Tom straightened up.
No.
He seemed unable to say anything. He didn't know how much we knew and was gauging how to respond.
Sarah has told us everything up to now, including what happened in Chicago yesterday and the photos. What on earth have you been doing?
Tom was expressionless and said nothing in response. After a moment of silence between Tom and John, neither speaking, I decided to make a move. I always thought something was off, but then I found this in your room the other day and had it checked out. I showed him a photo of the hotel letterhead I had found in Tom's room. Tom looked startled, but everything was already out in the open. Resigned to his fate, Tom began to speak hesitantly.
It was just for fun at first. I thought she was kind of cute. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to neglect my family.
Really? What are you even saying? Didn't mean to neglect your family. Going on multiple affairs trips a month, never showing up for the kids' events, leaving everything to me. And you say you weren't neglecting your family? Don't joke around. You didn't think about our family at all. You just had fun with the younger woman. You dumped everything on me, didn't you? I'm always alone at events that other couples attend together. Have you ever even considered how I felt? The more I spoke, the angrier I got. You hardly seem aware you're even married, do you? You have 2 elementary school children. Don't you feel ashamed of having an affair? I don't need a husband like that. After a while, Tom spoke up.
I'm sorry. I may have gotten carried away.
He apologized. What was he expecting to do with an apology? The frustration built up over 5 years, and the shock of seeing the reality with my own eyes wouldn't just disappear with an apology. Apologizing now is pointless. In fact, Tom had an affair even when I was pregnant with our first child. Back then, I still loved him dearly and forgave him because he apologized so earnestly. But this time, I can't forgive him. Seeing Tom in Chicago, all cozy and grinning with Ellie, I completely shut down. I feel nothing for Tom anymore. Please sign this. I handed Tom the divorce papers. That's when he seemed to notice for the first time that the house looked different.
Wait a minute. Where's the furniture?
In a panic, he went to check the other rooms. It's too late for that now. The bedroom, the kids' rooms, all were empty. After checking around the house, Tom came back, shoulders slumped.
You knew, didn't you? It's over then?
Yes, it's impossible now. We're getting a divorce. And so, under the watchful eyes of our parents from both sides, we signed the divorce papers. Even though the divorce is finalized, I've been a stay-at-home mom focused solely on household duties and raising our children. What worries me is our livelihood. That's why I demanded 5 years' worth of alimony and child support from Tom. After all, I had been deceived for 5 years. I asked for a substantial amount in alimony. Then, as if forgetting his own faults, Tom suddenly lashed out in anger.
$30,000 in alimony. There's no way I'm paying that. Are you kidding me? I won't pay it.
It was John who showed his anger at this brazen response.
Are you even remorseful? As a husband and a father, you've been irresponsible. Considering what Sarah has been through, that's too little.
He said so and struck Tom. Tom, who had been hit, just glared back at him silently. The situation was getting heated, and it was getting scary, so I decided to shift the focus. If you won't pay, I'll just ask her. I have her name and address. I could even contact her employer if I need to. At this, Tom looked horrified and said,
Don't you dare. Are you trying to ruin her life?
No, but you've ruined mine. You realize, why did I ever marry a guy like this? You love that girl that much. You're foolish. Then pay up without complaining, and I won't touch her. Eventually, his infatuation with Ellie made him agree to the alimony. Honestly, I was prepared to accept less, but I was lucky to get the full amount I asked for. Next, we discussed child support. Tom complained about this too.
$1,500 a month? Isn't that too much? $1,500 for 2 kids. Sarah, aren't you being too greedy? Are you being stubborn because you lost to a young woman?
My mother started to stand up at his words, but I stopped her. It's fine. I reassured my mother with a nod and delivered the final blow to Tom. The child support is for 3, not too little.
What?
He didn't seem to understand. I mean, the 3rd child. I'm pregnant. Of course, it's yours. You remember, don't you? I'm actually 3 months pregnant. I hadn't told our parents about this, so everyone was visibly shocked. Tom's parents were the first to grasp the situation. They turned to me and my parents and apologized.
We are so sorry. Our foolish son has truly done something terrible. Sarah, we will take responsibility for ensuring the child support is paid. It must be hard managing with 3 kids. Please use our house.
They even offered to transfer their house to us. Honestly, I had not expected such generosity, so I'm deeply grateful to Tom's parents. Although I had initially moved back with my parents, The uncertainty of our future living situation was daunting, so I gratefully accepted their offer. Later, Tom's parents persuaded Tom to sell the house he owned, and they gave me the proceeds. Tom now lives with her parents in a second-hand apartment. Tom's parents keep a close watch to ensure he doesn't get into any more trouble and manage his finances. Thanks to them, there have been no issues with child support payments, and I can live without worry. Tom's relationship with 2 children, which was never strong, has not improved since the divorce, and they have never asked to see their father. We've agreed not to arrange visits unless the children want to see him.
Being alone has made me realize the warmth of family. I'm lonely. I want to see my kids.
Tom occasionally sends messages like this, but whether he will see the children again, I do not know. And about Ellie, it seems she was unaware Tom had children and quickly lost interest after finding out. Moreover, someone from Tom's company happened to see them together in Chicago, and the office affair came to light, becoming the subject of gossip. Tom was demoted, and the woman was transferred to a branch office in her hometown. What goes around comes around. The due date for my 3rd child is approaching soon. My 2 children, my parents, and in-laws are really looking forward to the birth of my baby. Once the baby is born, I may show Tom the pictures through my in-laws.
I'm at my limit. Mike, I'm sorry to say this, but I'm going to demand compensation from Sarah.
Compensation? What happened?
I've been harassed by her for so long. I want an apology for all of it. That night, while Sarah was in the bath, I confided in Mike. Mike was surprised, and though he seemed to think it was a joke at first, he just gave a bitter laugh.
Mom, that's not funny. Are you serious?
Surely, it was a shock for Mike. Of course, I'm serious. Look at this. The notebook I handed him was about to set off a series of tumultuous events. My name is Ellie. I'm 60 years old. I live alone now, just a plain old lady. I got married in my 20s and had my son, Mike. While Mike was still young, my husband fell ill. He was hospitalized and focused on his treatment, but despite that, he passed away. Since then, I've been raising Mike by myself. We didn't have any relatives to rely on, and juggling work and child care alone was tough. I might have made Mike feel lonely. But Mike grew up to be a very serious and good boy. Even without me, he was diligent in his studies and went to college. He even applied for a scholarship by himself for the entrance fee, which really surprised me. After graduating, he got a job at a local trading company and moved out. I often think he's more put together than I am, trying not to bother me. So, with Mike grown up, I've been living a worry-free life in my later years. As I was leisurely drinking tea, the phone suddenly rang. It was Mike.
Mom, I'm bringing over my fiancé soon.
A sudden marriage announcement. But come to think of it, Mike is already in his mid-30s. It wouldn't be strange if he were already married. A few days after the call, I met Mike's girlfriend, Sarah, for the first time. She was in her 20s and still young, and I couldn't hide my surprise. How did she meet Mike, who was much older than her? How did you two meet?
Oh, we met at a mixer. A colleague from work set it up, and Mike was invited to fill the numbers.
Apparently, they ended up sitting next to each other, and though Mike only talked about work, they hit it off. Sarah worked at a store that dealt with imported goods, so they found common ground in the hardships of managing inventory. They promised to meet again over drinks to vent about work and exchanged contact details. From there, their relationship quickly developed. After hearing the story of how they met, Mike went to the restroom. In the living room, it was just Sarah and me, and silence fell. At times like this, I didn't know what to say, and as I floundered, Sarah spoke up.
Did Mike live in this house until he got a job?
Yes, that's right.
Really? I can't believe it. It feels so frugal.
I sensed a bit of a barb in Sarah's tone and gave a wry smile. When Mike was little, we were indeed poor. Furthermore, Sarah wanted to see Mike's room and started wandering around the house. She laughed out loud and chuckled when she saw my personal belongings. Was it really that funny?
Yes, all the designs were the kind I'd never buy myself. They were new to me. Like this one, it's amazing.
Laughing, Sarah pointed to a purse that my late husband had given me as a gift. Oh, it's old, yes, but it was a gift from my husband.
But it's tacky. I'll get you a nicer one next time.
It was unclear if Sarah was listening to what I said, but that's what she blurted out. To me, it's a keepsake, and even though it's old, it's well cared for without any damage or dirt. It felt like she was belittling my feelings, and that hurt a little. However, Sarah never spoke down to Mike like that in front of him. I was feeling uneasy, but since Sarah is Mike's wife and not my daughter, I didn't want to make too much of a fuss and decided to let Mike make his own choices, acknowledging their marriage. Afterward, Sarah and Mike had their wedding. During the wedding, there were moments that confirmed our bad compatibility. Sarah, congratulations today. You look beautiful.
Thank you, Ellie. You're your usual self.
Yes. Thank you. When I replied that way, Sarah laughed unpleasantly. I didn't know what she was thinking at the time, but I overheard her talking with a friend after the ceremony.
So, I tried to hint at how tacky Ellie's outfit was by saying your usual self, but she thanked me.
That's hilarious. She really is a playmill, isn't she?
I was so embarrassed, my face turned red. Even though it was a rental, I was wearing a proper branded dress. I had intentionally chosen a plain design so as not to outshine the bride, and I hadn't expected my consideration to be mocked. Indeed, I didn't want to have much to do with Sarah and her crowd. Since the wedding, I haven't had much contact with Sarah. Fortunately, there are no signs of children, and all is peaceful. But suddenly, the time came when I had to interact with Sarah again. Out of the blue, Mike suggested that we live together. Sarah was reluctant, but Mike seemed worried about me living alone. I was happy to live with my son. I knew he was concerned about my mobility. In fact, I had recently tripped on the stairs while shopping and twisted my ankle, causing severe pain. I'm still limping, but I can walk. You don't need to worry so much. It'll heal in time.
No, I'm still worried. Sarah, you understand, right?
Yeah.
Mike insisted, and finally, Sarah relented. This is how the not-so-compatible Mill and Dil ended up living together. Mike works long hours, leaving early in the morning and returning late at night. During the day, it's just Sarah and me. I was tense and on guard, but Sarah didn't do anything. Rather, she goes out every day dressed flamboyantly with heavy makeup. Could it be that she married my son for his money and is having an affair? I try desperately to dismiss such thoughts, but the doubts persist. It's fortunate that I don't have to see Sarah's face much, but she ignores my mobility issues, and I end up doing all the household chores. There's a lot of laundry, and even when I ask for help, she says she's too busy. Busy, though she doesn't work and is always on her smartphone. Eventually, I couldn't stand it anymore and confronted Sarah. Are you actually saving any money with all this going out every day?
What's with this sudden question? I'm saving more than you, Ellie, so don't worry. We just don't share the same taste. You're too frugal for me.
Her comment, looking down on me as if I were poor, was infuriating. How disrespectful to say such a thing to someone older. All right, changing the subject, though, I'd like you to help out a bit more with the housework.
I thought it'd be better to let you do things your way.
Despite her pretense of consideration, Sarah said this brazenly. I was about to yell at her to stop lying, but clenched my fist and held back. My leg still hurts, so I could really use some help. Perhaps worried that Mike would hear about it and get upset, Sarah started to help a little with the chores. But this was when her harassment began. She would make dinner, only to put extra spicy seasoning just in my portion, or she'd turn off the water heater while I was bathing. Sarah claimed these were just accidents, but I'm sure they were intentional. And when I thought she was cleaning, she would use my clothes as cleaning rags. She would hang the laundry out again after I brought it in because of rain, getting everything soaking wet. There were countless such annoyances every day, too many to confront her about. Then something unforgivable happened. Sarah had sold my late husband's pocket watch on an online auction. I had noticed her sneaking around. When she went to the restroom, I peeked into her room. There it was, my husband's watch inside a cardboard box. The shipping label was addressed to an online auction site. She was using unfamiliar boxes and packing tape. What was she thinking, selling someone else's belongings? As I stared in disbelief at the cardboard box, Sarah returned.
Ellie, what are you doing?
Sarah, what is this all about?
What do you mean? I was just about to sell this watch.
This was my husband's. Why would you sell it without asking? As I confronted her, Sarah made a face of displeasure.
It was just a mistake. I was cleaning and found a dusty watch, and I thought it was junk.
That's a lie. There's no way. This watch was kept in a display case, which I clean regularly. I lost my temper and shouted, "Don't joke around." Then Sarah, unapologetic and laughing, said,
"Oh, scary. Please stop being hysterical."
What?
You're not struggling financially thanks to your son. Complaining about something like this seems pretty petty, doesn't it?
Gratitude, showing no remorse at all, was too much for me. Don't touch anything in this room. Don't even come in. With that, I left, and the mood between Sarah and me soured even more. Then, Sarah stopped doing anything for me, not dinner or laundry. I thought about discussing it with Mike, but he's serious and comes home tired from work every day. Complaining about his wife and mother quarreling over petty harassment would just upset him. Maybe it's better I just prepare my own meals so I can eat properly. I endured Sarah's harassment and just tried to get through it. But her harassment escalated. She would deliberately place objects in the hallway where I'd walk. Knowing my leg was bad, she only did this during the day. everything was cleared up by the time Mike returned home. Once, I tried to subtly warn her about it. "Sarah, I'm sorry, but my leg is bad, and it's difficult for me when you leave things in the hallway."
If you keep saying that, it will never get better. It's good practice for walking.
Sarah said this with a laugh. Perhaps upset by being called out, the next day there were even more objects blocking the way. It seems she also believes I wouldn't notice, but it appears she's been stealing money from my wallet. Initially, I thought she was just moving my purse around. But the thefts were so frequent that I realized it when I went shopping and found less money in it. I don't know when she started or how much Sarah has taken. It's my own home, and yet I've come to feel I can't let my guard down. Sarah's harassment isn't confined to the house. She's started spreading bad things about me to acquaintances in the neighborhood. She goes around saying completely untrue things, like the disliked Mill is the one harassing. My close friends don't believe it and they tell me about it, but casual acquaintances might. I was at my wit's end, and as Sarah started taking more money from the wallet, I couldn't stand it any longer. I've reached my limit. That night, while Sarah was in the bath, I took the opportunity to speak to Mike. "Mike, I'm sorry, but I have to demand compensation from Sarah."
Compensation? What happened?
"I've been harassed by her. I want her to apologize for everything." Mike was surprised, though he seemed to think it was a joke and chuckled.
Mom, that's not funny. Are you serious?
Indeed, it must have been shocking for Mike. "I'm serious. Look at this." I brought out a notebook and opened it in front of Mike. This notebook contains detailed records of the harassment from Sarah, starting with the very first overly spicy meal. I had been keeping records, and before I knew it, they spanned 6 months. I was surprised myself to see how long the harassment had been going on. As I flipped through the notebook, Mike's expression changed.
Is this really?
Mike held his head in his hands. But the entries included detailed dates and times, making it clear that I wasn't just making things up. "I want compensation, and if you agree, I think it's best if you divorce Sarah." Just then, Sarah came out of the bath. As she was heading to her room, Mike stopped her.
Sarah, we need to talk.
What's up?
Sarah approached and noticed the notebook on the table. Mike handed her the notebook, and her face turned sour as she read.
Mom says you've been harassing her this much. Is that true?
That's a lie. Don't you trust me?
But
with all these details, you still plan to deny it.
This notebook alone isn't proof,
Sarah said with a smirk. Mike was unsure who to believe. But I had anticipated that Sarah would deny everything. I showed them a camera I had set up in my room. Recently, I had placed it near my purse. The video showed Sarah repeatedly taking money from my wallet. I hadn't told Mike about the stolen money yet, but it seems he believed me because of the camera.
Even stealing money. Sarah, why would you do something like this?
It's not a big deal. I just found you annoying.
Annoying? What did Mom even do to you?
You're just too poor for my taste. I'm sorry, but taking care of a mill like you is the last thing I want.
Sarah finally showed her true colors even in front of Mike. Mike was left speechless and shaking with shock. Anyway, this is theft. It's a crime. If you can't apologize properly, I'll have to report this to the police. Laughing as if it was funny, Sarah chuckled.
Going to the police over a few $1,000s? You really are a poor person, so petty.
Mike was furious at her response.
Enough is enough.
Perhaps it was the first time Mike had yelled at her, as Sarah visibly flinched.
Sarah, just because we're from a single mother household, you've been looking down on me all this time.
No, I wasn't looking down on you, Mike.
Mike shook his head at Sarah's words and began to reveal a truth unknown to her. Actually, I used to run a company. It was the precursor to the trading company Mike works for. When my husband was hospitalized, I sold the company to another trading firm to pay for his treatment. It was tough to take care of him and raise a child at the same time back then. And after my husband's death, I inherited several properties from him and still earn passive income from them. Sarah looked shocked, probably thinking I was just a pension-receiving old lady living alone, a burden to Mike. Mike continued. All of Mike's tuition and our wedding expenses were properly covered by me. The wedding, which became expensive due to Sarah's demands, happened thanks to me. I provided 3 times the amount Mike had saved. Using a scholarship was just Mike's way of being considerate, and this house was never impoverished. Now, although Mike's salary exceeds my income, I still hold assets that are comparable to those of an average salaried worker.
What? I didn't know that.
Even if you didn't know, what you did was despicable.
Cutting off Sarah's excuses, Mike turned back to me.
Mom, I'm sorry I didn't notice what you were going through. I was foolish to make you endure this.
It's okay, Mike. It's not your fault. Don't apologize. Mike then presented Sarah with 2 choices. One was to use the surveillance footage as evidence and report her to the police. The other was to acknowledge the harassment she did to me and retract the lies she spread around the neighborhood.
Which will it be? Decide now.
Of course, Sarah chose the latter.
I apologize. I was wrong. Please forgive me. Just please, no police.
She probably didn't realize the severity of her actions until now. Her face pale, she cried and apologized to me.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
I can't just forgive you right away. Show me through your actions. I sternly told her, and Sarah hung her head. Since then, she's been correcting her lies to our neighbors, trying to improve my image. Honestly, even if Sarah apologizes meekly, it won't immediately fix my impression. Maybe they'll think she's being forced to lie by a wicked wife. Even so, if Sarah is truly remorseful, this is the best way. While I felt somewhat vindicated, Mike apparently isn't ready to let this go. After Sarah returned the stolen money, Mike told her they were getting a divorce. He presented her with already filled out divorce papers.
Please leave this house immediately.
But I apologized.
You just apologized for your own sins. I can't trust a wife who commits such crimes.
It was later discovered that my leg injury was actually caused by Sarah. On my way back from shopping, as I was descending the stairs, I was bumped into and fell. Unexpectedly, it was Sarah who bumped into me. Sarah injured my leg to make Mike worry. Her ultimate aim was to get this house. Though slightly old, this house is in a very good location. It's spacious, and with some renovations, it could become a beautiful detached home. Realizing that Sarah had planned this from the start, Mike and I were shaken. Thus, we returned to living just the 2 of us. My leg has mostly healed, and I no longer have trouble walking. A year later, surprisingly, I found Sarah living homeless in the local park. Ever since she was married to Mike, she had squandered her savings on endless entertainment, relying on Mike's wealth. Furthermore, she had borrowed money from friends and acquaintances. It seems she was repaying these debts with the money from my wallet. Unable to continue repaying her debts, Sarah became isolated, with no one to help her. After the divorce, penniless, Sarah struggled to make ends meet by juggling several part-time jobs. However, her relationships at work did not go well, and she kept changing jobs. Because of this, she struggled to pay her apartment rent and was eventually evicted due to arrears. Her reputation has spread around the neighborhood, and now no store will hire her. Despite it being her own doing, it seems she has received quite a harsh punishment. Meanwhile, Mike divorced Sarah and remarried 6 months later. I was worried that after everything with Sarah, Mike might never marry again. As a parent, naturally, I was concerned about who would take care of him after I'm gone. I hoped that Mike would find someone to look after him as he grows older. Fortunately, those worries turned out to be unnecessary. The woman he remarried was someone he met through work, very reliable. Just to be safe, I had told her about Sarah, but she said it was all in the past and not to worry. His new wife is very thoughtful. She takes care of me without a single complaint. She also has a caregiving qualification from her background in welfare, and she is now planning renovations for us. Finally, I feel fully accepted as family by my DIL, and I am filled with happiness. She invites me on trips just as easily as if I were her real daughter. However, we go out together so often that I sometimes think I should give Mike and her some space. Even more joyously, his new wife is now pregnant. They went to the hospital and immediately shared the news with me upon their return. Mike looked very happy. Living together day by day with my first grandchild and a family of 4. I find myself dreaming of such a joyful future.
I'm sorry, I can't seem to find my seat. Could you help me? Nodding and smiling, Chloe told me.
That's not possible.
What?
There are only seats for family.
Confused by her words, I was taken aback. We are family, aren't we?
That's right, my family. The family I acknowledge.
What do you mean? As my confusion deepened, Chloe's smile grew, seemingly enjoying the situation.
You see, family supports each other. But Kate, you bring no added value, do you? You're just an ordinary housewife, aren't you?
Then why did you invite me? Had I known beforehand, I wouldn't have come here even if asked.
But surely we need someone to clear the dishes and bring more drinks, right?
Shall we go home?
Let's do that.
We were ready to leave in 3 minutes and headed for the entrance. Just then, the front door opened and someone appeared. I am Kate Johnson, a 55-year-old housewife. Recently, my only son, Thomas, got married. I was quite surprised when Thomas first introduced me to his girlfriend, Chloe, because, in terms of both personality and appearance, she was the complete opposite of Thomas. Thinking back, Thomas has always been laid back and a bit slow. He's indifferent to clothes, appearance, and trends.
Hair should be easy to manage. and clothes should be durable and comfortable.
Thomas would say with a smile. Chloe, on the other hand, is 31, a year older than Thomas. She's bright and decisive, always wearing stylish, colorful clothes.
I always coordinate Thomas's outfits,
she said proudly. She must be confident in her taste. Honestly, the two of them, like night and day, didn't seem like a couple even when standing together. The reason they decided to get married was apparently because of a child. Just 2 months after being introduced to Chloe, it turned out she was pregnant.
You need to take responsibility,
Chloe had said nonchalantly when the pregnancy was discovered. These days, a marriage following a pregnancy isn't unusual. Neither my husband, David, nor I would criticize them. Which comes first, marriage or children? Honestly, the order doesn't really matter. As long as the couple and their child are happy, there's no problem. That's what David and I believed. However, what made us anxious was Chloe's attitude.
for the moving expenses to the new house, the deposit, and some living expenses for the time being. You should support us. That's your responsibility, right?
She demanded money from Thomas and us with those words. Certainly, pregnancy changes lives drastically, especially for women who bear a greater physical burden. And it's true that it incurs significant expenses. I could understand that logic. But still, it was hard to accept. Chloe's attitude was overly dramatic, like she was the only victim, lashing out at us.
I wanted to work hard too. I was about to be promoted, but now everything's gone.
During a visit to our home, Thomas and Chloe had a trivial argument. At that time, Chloe shouted at Thomas through tears. But she was set for a promotion, and now it's all been canceled because of the pregnancy. Hearing this, as a woman, I truly sympathized with her. Chloe, she was really working hard. From a mother's perspective, I even felt guilty. However, seeing me down, Thomas told me with a conflicted look.
But Chloe, she's been saying she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom even before the pregnancy. And right after we found out, she decided on her own to quit her job.
She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. When I asked, tilting my head, Thomas slowly nodded.
Yes, plus, her workplace had solid benefits, and they would have accommodated her during the pregnancy. Yet, she quit so quickly.
Maybe she felt too sick to continue. Maybe that's why she was upset. Everyone experiences pregnancy differently. Some have mild morning sickness, while others suffer severely. If she had to quit a job she was dedicated to because of that, it would indeed be unfortunate. To my question, Thomas silently bowed his head. Concerned about Thomas, I pressed for more details. It turned out the situation was more serious than I had thought. Chloe's behavior was baffling. If it was due to pregnancy-related illness, it's understandable. However, she had been going out to play since the day after she quit. And when she came home late at night, she would complain, "I'm tired." Thomas, not quite convinced but concerned for her, would ask about her condition. To which Chloe would answer suspiciously,
My condition. It can't be good. You're a man. You wouldn't understand how tough it is for a pregnant woman.
She also added,
And don't expect me to do any housework just because I'm home. It's absolutely impossible. I never know when I'll get sick. Well, women are always at a disadvantage.
On days she wasn't out, Chloe spent the whole time, from morning to night, just lounging on the sofa and playing with her smartphone. With such one-sided complaints, Pua Thomas couldn't muster a strong response and just ended up apologizing.
If I even slightly argue back, she throws a tantrum and starts screaming, so it's easiest to just go along with her.
Thomas told us, looking utterly drained. He hardly looked like a newlywed. Well, being pregnant can make you emotionally unstable and physically unsteady, I suppose. I had it easy, but morning sickness varies.
Right. Anyway, we'll help however we can.
All David and I could do was try to encourage an utterly exhausted Thomas. And so we fulfilled Chloe's wishes by covering the costs for the new home and related expenses. It might seem overly indulgent, but we hoped it might ease Chloe's mind a bit and soften her treatment of Thomas. But Chloe wasn't satisfied with just that. Perhaps having had a taste of it once, she developed a liking for it. She visited our house frequently, each time asking us for financial support.
I want to buy some baby items. Can you give me some money?
Chloe said this, extending her hand with her usual calm demeanor. Initially, we gave her money as she requested, but after so many visits, we started to become suspicious. Thomas had entrusted the management of his salary to Chloe. His earnings weren't bad at all. Even if Chloe wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, they should have had enough to live comfortably. Yet, why did she keep coming to us so often? Each time, she had plausible reasons like baby needs or medical expenses. But were we just being used by Chloe? That question crossed our minds. Moreover, lately, even when we helped, Chloe stopped even bothering to say thank you.
Enough is enough. Next time she asks, we'll refuse.
That sounds right. It was when David and I had discussed and decided on it. Incredibly, he had an accident. He survived, but was left with some paralysis and had to quit his job. Fortunately, we had some savings and some income from real estate. It was enough for David and me to live on. Let's just think of it as an early retirement and take it easy.
Yes, that's right.
David started rehabilitation, and we spent our days relaxing, just the two of us. After some time, we realized something. Since David retired, Chloe stopped coming to our house altogether. Maybe she thought we no longer had money because of his retirement. Or perhaps she feared being asked to help with caregiving. Chloe's blatant behavior left us with mixed feelings. But either way, it was convenient for us. It would be perfect if we could continue to maintain a good distance. If we had continued as Chloe wanted, we might have ended up bankrupt. That thought was relieving. Later, only Thomas kept visiting us regularly, and during those visits, he updated us about Chloe. A few months later, Thomas informed us that Chloe had safely given birth to a healthy baby boy. The baby's name is Jack. Chloe was admitted to a hospital just a few minutes' drive from our house. Filled with relief and joy, David and I were delighted.
That's wonderful. I can't wait to see our grandson. I'd go right now if I could.
Yes, but Chloe must be tired from giving birth, so we should ask first. Holding back our excitement, I contacted Chloe. Congratulations on your delivery. You really did great. Also, David and I would like to visit you in the hospital. When would be a good time for you? I sent the message and waited for her reply. But no matter how long I waited, there was no response from Chloe. After 1 day, 2 days, and 3 days of waiting, I couldn't wait any longer, so I called Thomas. Over the phone, Thomas hesitated and struggled to speak.
Chloe said, well, she doesn't want to meet anyone other than her own family.
What do you mean?
She's tired from giving birth and doesn't want to bother with others.
Apparently, by family, she meant her own blood relatives. In other words, she didn't want to let us, who are not blood related, meet the child. That's disappointing.
After she's discharged and some time has passed, we'll come over to see you. So, sorry about not during the hospital stay.
Thomas sounded apologetic. If I pushed the issue, it would only put Thomas, who was already caught in the middle, in a difficult position. I understand. We're looking forward to seeing you. Take care, all 3 of you. With that, I hung up the phone. Eventually, we were able to meet our grandchild about a month after the birth. Thomas brought his baby to our house. Chloe was at home resting from child care, apparently.
He's adorable. I'm so glad we finally got to meet.
Babies are just mesmerizing. How's Chloe doing? Is she struggling with sleep because of the child care fatigue?
No, I handle the nighttime duties, so it's okay. Chloe's just a bit unstable after the birth, so I thought she should rest today.
It seemed Thomas was in charge of feeding and soothing the baby at night. Despite having to work, my son was managing everything well. Must be tough. Are you okay?
I've gotten used to it, but cutting back on sleep is hard.
Upon asking more, it turns out Chloe didn't go to her parents' house for postpartum care, and her parents only came over on weekends. So after returning from work, Thomas would take care of the accumulated housework and let Chloe rest at night by taking over the child care. Looking at him, he seemed to have lost some weight. I thought she'd be with her parents after giving birth. Are you sure you're okay handling work, housework, and the nighttime baby care?
Honestly, it's tough, but Chloe doesn't want to rely on anyone other than me, so we can't really ask anyone for help.
I wanted to go to his house and help out at least with the housework, but that's probably something Chloe would dislike. Just make sure you don't overdo it, and please let us know if it ever gets too much.
Yay, thanks. That's why I'm sorry we can't let you see Jack more often.
It's sad not to see my grandson, but Thomas's and Chloe's well-being is more important. Don't worry about us. Just come over when things settle down. That'll be enough.
Yay, thank you.
We kept in touch with Thomas, but it seemed he was busy, and we rarely got to meet. Their house was just a 30-minute drive from ours. We could help any time if they asked, but if Chloe was against it, We couldn't ignore her feelings. And before we knew it, 3 months postpartum were about to pass. One day, unexpectedly, Chloe contacted our house herself. The matter was about celebrating Jack's baptism.
Jack is the first grandchild for both families, and my parents want to celebrate in a big way, so we'd love for all your relatives to come too.
All the relatives. I was pleased to be invited, but I hadn't expected such a grand celebration. As I was taken aback, Chloe seemed to sense something and added,
"Don't think too much about it. Like, the doctor who came to our wedding, oh, and there was a lawyer too, right? It would be great if everyone could come."
She remembered the relatives not by their names or how they were related, but by their professions. "All right, I'll reach out to them."
Thank you. We'll host the celebration, so please let me know the attendees' schedule as soon as you can.
I wasn't too keen, but if they were inviting their relatives, it would be rude not to do the same. I'd extend the invitation, and if they couldn't make it, then that couldn't be helped. I checked the wedding guest list and contacted the relatives.
To Jack's baptism.
Several relatives agreed to come to Jack's celebration. Then the day of the celebration arrived. After Jack's baptism at the church, we went to Thomas' house. None of Chloe's relatives had arrived yet, but the food and seating were already prepared. Thomas was not there. He had apparently gone out to buy some drinks that were needed. The table was laden with lavish dishes, and there were handmade place cards with names written neatly on them. In total, about 20 people from both families were expected today. It was a significant number. Tables were placed in the living and dining areas to fit everyone.
Please, everyone, take a seat at the place card with your name on it.
Prompted by Chloe, everyone slowly moved to their respective seats. Amidst this, David and I were confused.
Did you find it?
No, it's not here. David's place card was found quickly, but despite searching, my place card was nowhere to be found. Naturally, I expected it to be next to David's, but it wasn't. Perplexed, I decided to call over Chloe and ask, Chloe, could I have a moment?
Yes.
I can't seem to find my seat. Sorry, could you help me? Chloe nodded and then, with a cheerful smile, blurted out to me,
"That's not possible."
"What?"
"There are only seats for my family."
I froze, not understanding what she was saying. "Family, what?"
"That's right, only my family. The family I acknowledge."
Chloe was speaking matter-of-factly, but I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Was she talking about blood relations like before? But then, it wouldn't make sense for there to be seats for relatives. It seems only I was without a seat here. "What do you mean?" As my confusion deepened, Chloe seemed to relish it, her lips curling up slightly.
"You see, family members support each other, right? I mean, there should be a mutual benefit."
Chloe then pulled out a guest list for today's event. It appeared to be handmade. She continued,
"For instance, having a doctor means having someone to rely on in an emergency. Lawyers are the same. It's reassuring to have such people in the family."
It was by chance, but indeed, those gathered today were predominantly highly educated relatives.
In your case, Kate, what added value do you bring? You're just an ordinary housewife, aren't you?
Chloe sneered condescendingly, causing a surge of irritation within me. I see. So Chloe had prepared seats only for those she deemed beneficial to herself. Then why did you invite me? I asked, my voice trembling. Had I known beforehand, I wouldn't have come if asked.
Well, we need someone to clear the dishes and bring additional drinks, right?
In short, I was called in as a housemaid. How dare she mock me? Stunned by her audacity, I stood there when David, trembling next to me, asked Chloe.
What about me then? I'm retired, unemployed. I bring no benefits either.
Chloe waved her hands dismissively.
But David, you're wealthy, right? You have real estate income, and raising children costs money, which helps us.
Chloe's straightforward, unapologetic response sent a chill down my spine. The other relatives, who had been quietly listening, began to stand up and look at me. David took my hand, our eyes met, and he nodded slowly.
Let's go. We can't stay silent after being told such things.
The other relatives seemed to agree with David, nodding their heads. I sighed deeply and said, "Shall we go home?"
Let's do that.
All the relatives began to prepare for their return home.
What? Wait, what are you doing? I don't understand.
Chloe sputtered, clearly flustered as everyone prepared to leave. We were ready to leave in 3 minutes and headed for the entrance.
Wait a minute.
Chloe cried out, and suddenly the front door swung open. Thomas had just come back.
What's going on here?
He asked, eyes wide in surprise. As I hesitated on how to explain, David glared at Chloe and told Thomas,
Your wife has insulted Kate terribly. We feel so awful that we're leaving now.
What?
Thomas was shocked. Then he blurted out something even more shocking.
Wait, she's about to not be my wife anymore.
As everyone stood there dumbfounded, Chloe was the only one who raised her voice in alarm.
What are you talking about? What does that mean?
Thomas then thrust 2 pieces of paper at Chloe.
From today on, you and I are strangers. Let's get divorced.
Do you even know what you're saying?
Chloe screamed hysterically, snatching the papers from Thomas. She stared at them intensely, and her face quickly paled.
Thomas, what is this?
You can see, right? One is the divorce papers. The other is the DNA test result for Jack.
Why did you get a DNA test?
As Chloe trembled, the test results slipped from her hands. I quickly picked them up.
No, don't look at that.
From the current conversation between the couple, I had suspected, but the written result was unbelievable. Mismatch. Jack isn't Thomas's child.
Bingo. I've been desperately raising a child that Chloe had with another man I don't know.
Thomas was looking straight at Chloe. Chloe, trying to avoid his gaze, looked down and did not meet his eyes.
What are you talking about? Jack is Thomas's child.
Then is this DNA result a lie? Shall we test again? I'm willing to do it as many times as it takes. The result won't change though.
Chloe fell silent, then began to bite her nails fiercely. She then glared at Thomas.
So what? Does it really matter if we're blood related? It doesn't matter at all if you don't test.
Chloe retorted, her face turning red.
Are you being defiant now?
Muttered one of the relatives.
Shut up.
Chloe shouted back.
If it had been an adoption from the start, it'd be a different story. But this time, I was just deceived by you. I was deceived and unknowingly raising someone else's child. Don't joke that you don't care.
Thomas yelled, and both David and I were stunned. Chloe seemed shocked as well.
Don't say I'm cheating on you.
So it was serious. Makes sense. You've been seeing him every week after all.
Chloe's face, which had just flushed red, now drained of color again.
Did you know?
I just happened to see you.
He saw her walking arm in arm with another man. Initially, Thomas had convinced himself that the man was just her friend, but every time he and Chloe argued, that image haunted him and wouldn't leave.
It seems you were never really interested in me or Jack. That's why I got suspicious and hired a private investigator, and while at it, got a DNA test done too.
We hadn't been told, but it turns out the couple had been fighting. Moreover, most of the reasons were due to her selfishness and unreasonable demands. Despite being postpartum, she wanted to go stay overnight far away with friends, or she demanded money for her own leisure. For Chloe's entertainment, Thomas had taken several days off work to look after Jack.
At first, I felt grateful to her for having our child, and I thought I had to put up with it, but it just kept going on.
There's only so much paid leave one can take. At the very least, he wanted her to look after Jack during the weekdays. Or perhaps ask one of their parents for help. But Chloe completely refused that idea.
My parents aren't a daycare, you know? And I don't want Jack to get more attached to your parents than mine.
Thomas was forced into these unreasonable demands for such trivial reasons.
The results from the private investigator, you know them without me saying, right, she was openly having an affair.
Well, that's...
Chloe was visibly shaken, trying to come up with an excuse but couldn't find any words.
I'm definitely getting a divorce. I will also demand alimony from both you and your lover.
That's so unfair. Why both? Are you some kind of gold digger?
Of course, it's fair. Your lover knew you were married. And who's the real gold digger here? Do you know how much my parents have given you?
Indeed, we had provided quite a bit of financial support for the couple, and for the sake of the grandchild. Who would have guessed that the child wasn't even Thomas? Chloe clenched her teeth and glared at Thomas. Then, suddenly, she turned to me.
You understand, don't you, Kate?
Me. Caught off guard by her sudden plea, Chloe rushed over and took my hand.
It was just a moment of folly. And above all, think about the child. It's pitiful, isn't it? Please, convince Thomas. I think he'll listen to you.
In her desperation, she targeted me, perhaps thinking I was the easiest to manipulate here. From a distance, Chloe's parents, who were shrinking back, watched their daughter's desperate antics. What were they feeling, watching their daughter behave like this? At least I couldn't remain a bystander as they were. I guess Chloe is like this because she was raised by those parents.
It's our fault for making Jack unhappy.
Wait, that's not right.
What?
I denied Chloe, who tilted her head. You're the one making Jack unhappy, Chloe. Stop trying to make Thomas out to be your accomplice. To my own surprise, my voice came out colder and lower than I expected. Chloe, probably not expecting me to argue back. She froze in surprise.
But if we get divorced, that will make Jack unhappy.
The root of all this is you deceiving Thomas into marrying you, isn't it? Besides, you've dumped everything on Thomas after the birth, child care, housework, and work, and now you're using your child as a shield. It was clear she was trying to garner sympathy to keep Thomas from leaving. Neglecting her child and only using him when convenient was unforgivable.
That was, after the birth, my hormonal balance was.
Stop using hormonal balance as an excuse. It's insulting to me as a woman.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Though she had been assertive with Thomas, being unexpectedly challenged by me seemed to have crushed her spirit, and she fell silent. The room quieted down suddenly. At that moment, one of the relatives raised his hand. It was David's brother, Mark, a lawyer.
I think I've got the gist of the situation. How about we call it a day for now and set up a meeting later? From what I've heard, a smooth divorce seems unlikely, and there might be additional compensation for Kate and David.
He was probably referring to the money we had helped out with. Indeed, continuing the argument here would just be taking up more of the other relatives' time unnecessarily. Yes, that sounds good. I apologize for the inconvenience to everyone who came out here today. As I bowed my head, the other relatives reassured me with smiles, saying, "Don't worry about it." And to Chloe's parents, who had been silent up until now.
Yes.
Despite their seemingly polite and calm demeanor, perhaps they had mistaken indulgence for kindness. It was disturbing how they had stayed silent throughout Chloe's altercation with us, treating it as if it were none of their business. Their expression now seemed to say they hadn't expected to be called out. We'll arrange a meeting later. This is about what your daughter has done. Don't pretend you don't know just because she's an adult. Please be there. Chloe's parents looked like they wanted to escape, but grudgingly nodded. A few days later, we gathered again. Mark had brought a lawyer he recommended. Despite what had happened, Chloe and her family hadn't really discussed anything since then. As a result, discussions about the divorce and alimony weren't progressing. That was to be expected. Chloe's parents were uninformed, so we had to go over everything again, which was both redundant and time-consuming. To make matters worse, perhaps like mother, like daughter, they were very stern about money and kept trying to negotiate down the alimony. Finally, out of frustration, I declared, "Then it seems we have no choice but to go to court." That finally got them to agree to the payment. Regarding Jack's custody, after much deliberation, it was decided to place him in a foster care facility. Thomas struggled until the end, seeming to have been trying to take custody of Jack. He experimented with different approaches to see if there was any way he could manage. However, over these past few months, handling household chores, parenting, and work, He apparently judged that he couldn't raise the child alone.
If I ever become too busy and get neurotic, I might start thinking, why am I doing this for someone who isn't even my own blood?
He shared with us last night, his eyes red from crying. After the discussion ended, David finally looked at Chloe.
There's something I need to say.
It was about me.
You said that Kate, being a stay-at-home mom, seemed worthless. But that's absolutely not true. It's because of Kate that I can dedicate myself to my work. And when it comes down to it, she's the most reliable one. Well, you must have realized that by now.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Chloe only said that much and apologized. After that, Chloe seemed remorseful at first, but she quickly forgot about it. She stopped making payments on the installment plan for the alimony. She probably thought she could get away with not paying, but there's no way that would be allowed. We had a lawyer step in to press the issue. We contacted Chloe's parents and changed the payments from installments to a lump sum.
I'll pay next time. I can possibly pay all at once.
Chloe apparently begged on them, but she couldn't be trusted. As a result, her parents had to sell their house. One of the reasons was for alimony, but the fact that Chloe and her lover had a loud fight in front of her parents' house, and the reason for her divorce became known around the neighborhood, was the final straw. Now they live in a small, old apartment, just the three of them. They look like refined and calm parents, but their fights were loud enough to be heard outside. By the way, the lover was also reluctant to pay the alimony, but seeing Chloe's parents selling their house and moving, he decided it was better to settle up quickly rather than dragging out the payments. The determination of our lawyer and seeing Chloe cornered made him reconsider prolonging the payments. I don't know what happened to Jack, but according to the folks at the foster care facility, he's still baby, and there's a high chance he'll find a foster family. I just hope he finds happiness. Thomas is still as calm as ever. Recently, he got a promotion at his work and is more motivated than ever. One change since that incident is that our relatives, feeling sympathetic, have been bringing him marriage proposals. They all mean well, but Thomas isn't interested in getting married anytime soon.
I want to be capable and financially stable enough to support a child on my own.
Thomas continues to strive for improvement every day. David and I go on trips regularly and enjoy our retirement leisurely. He still has some paralysis, but it's getting better thanks to rehabilitation. I've never really had any complaints about him, but what he said at that time made me really happy. I truly felt fortunate to have married him. If Thomas ever gets married again, I hope he and his partner support each other like us. I can't say this to him directly because it would just sound like doting, but I wish it in my heart.